Hi everyone, this presentation is about Hypatia, ancient Alexandria's great female mathematician. I'm Dr. Angela Beltos, an academic coordinator in applied mathematics at Athabasca University and a member of the Nikola Tesla Historical Society of Alberta. I'm presenting this topic as it ties in nicely with this year's theme of Science Literacy Week, that of mathematics. The presentation was inspired by our Tesla Society because we have a mission not only to promote Tesla and his work, but also to recognize and promote the work of other underrepresented scientists and mathematicians. And this includes, of course, women in mathematics as a highly underrepresented group. Hypatia was a founding figure when it comes to women mathematicians, and this is a brief look into her story. Let me start now to tell you about who Hypatia was and about her fame and why she is famous. She was a Greek philosopher, a mathematician, and an astronomer. Although she was Greek, she was born and lived in Alexandria in Egypt. Her year of birth is not exactly known, but it is around 350 AD, and she lived until 415 AD. Her year of death is well documented. She was born into the later part of the Roman Empire. She was the first woman who taught at the University of Alexandria and had a career teaching there. She was teaching philosophies of the era, that of Plato and Aristotle, and she led the school of Neoplatonism. Neoplatonism was the teachings of Plato with a spin on it, mathematics with a mysticism or a spiritual aspect through geometry, music, arithmetic, and astronomy. And the Neoplatonists had a belief that numbers were the sacred language of the universe. She had devoted students who came from all over, from far and wide, to study with her, including students of various religious backgrounds. She was well known for her brilliance, her generosity, her fairness, and her openness. She was the last proprietor of the Library of Alexandria before it burned. And her legend surrounds quite a bit her tragic death. She was tragically murdered in the incidents that surrounded the religious and political turmoil of the time. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. Her work. What is she known for? Well, she refined scientific instruments and she wrote math textbooks. However, there is little known of what exactly she discovered. Her own writings did not survive, but her brilliance was well documented historically by her contemporaries and her students, so it was known that she was a great mathematician, philosopher, and astronomer. She continued the work of her father, who was also a Greek mathematician named Theon, who was commenting on and editing the works of predecessor ancient Greek mathematicians. So she continued that as well. And some of those writings still exist. She is most well known for her influential teaching in Alexandria. She was also an advisor to the city's leaders at the time. She was the second well-known woman mathematician in all of history, the first one being Theano, who was the wife of the Greek mathematician Pythagoras, and that was about 1,000 years before Hypatia. And given this, she was one of the first mathematicians who was well known, and she was a founding figure for women mathematicians. Her legacy still lives on. Unfortunately, much of what was documented about her surrounds her death, as I mentioned earlier, so I'll talk a little bit about that. She was living in Alexandria, which was a city of culture and learning at the time. However, there was a lot of turmoil and violence in the city due to religious differences. The bishop and the governor of Alexandria were disputing with each other, and Hypatia unfortunately became involved. She was blamed for keeping the governor from Christian faith with her teachings and advice, and she was brutally murdered by a mob of Christians in 415. Her death became a symbol in history of the death of ancient learning at the hands of new ignorance. After she died, Alexandria was destroyed as the city of culture and learning, and other scholars fled, the Library of Alexandria was burned. Her legend lives on. She is considered a heroine and an icon of history. And finally, in recent years, there is a movie about her. It's called Agora. It's a feature film made in 2009, and it's said to be historically accurate with respect to the religious turmoil of the time. However, it does take a license on the details of her life and death. It was a controversial movie when it came out. Christians disputed the portrayal of the early Christians in the movie as enemies of learning and culture. In general, not just with the movie, there is some debate about her life and events in her life and details because the myths have been built around her legend. Here she is portrayed in the movie by Rachel Weisz. And here's a list of sources I used for this presentation. Thank you for watching.